Welcome to Legion Radio, a podcast about all things e-commerce, the official podcast of the private label Legion, hosted by Tim Jordan.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Legion Radio, the podcast of the private label Legion. And today we have a guest with us, Chris DePoppy. I would have said DePope, but he just corrected me off recording. DePoppy. And the reason that we have him here is because he's got some interesting experience. He's worked for Amazon. We'll talk about that in a second. And he also sells a lot of arbitrage items and also has been playing with private label. I've got here on my notes that he went on a China trip about a year ago. We'll ask him about that. He's selling in multiple countries. And the way he kind of popped up on our radar was he was making a comment, I think, in the Legion Facebook group about products. And it spiked my interest because he was saying some of the things that I believe strongly in, and I know a lot of you believe strongly in. And I wanted him to reiterate on that. And the reason we want to reiterate on that is, of course, to take lessons off of it, to gain valuable information, to learn what to do, what not to do. And that's all information that we need to hear, we need to implement, we need to share, and we need to use to make our businesses more successful. So, Chris, give us like the 3-minute version of who you are prior to working for Amazon. Where are you from?
Wow.
Your family, all that good stuff.
Okay, yeah. My name's Chris DePoppy, so I'm from Enumclaw, Washington, which is about an hour southeast of Seattle at the base of Mount Rainier. I'm a dad. I have 3 kids, 2 girls, 12 and 17, and my son is just turned 21. Let's see. Yeah, I did work for Amazon as an Amazon Fulfillment Center manager for 6.5 years, roughly. I started selling on Amazon in 2014, kind of dabbling, experimenting with different sourcing methods. And in 2016, I kind of figured out how to scale retail arbitrage, and had the mindset that I can make this happen. And 2017, December of 2017, I quit. And I've been full-time since then, and it's been amazing.
Nice. So which fulfillment center did you work in for Amazon?
I started at the Sumner facility, Sumner, Washington, which is called BFI 1. And then I also worked in BFI 3, which is in DuPont, Washington. And I spent 1.5 years also in Seattle, the main offices, working on a project. So
Gotcha.
A little bit experience there.
So speaking from the horse's mouth, tell us something that would shock us about Amazon fulfillment centers, because most of us have never been in any. Most of us don't know the workings. We just know that they lose our stuff, and we have to request Cuba scans every 6 minutes. So tell us something that would shock us, so something that would surprise us that we might not know.
I'm surprised you know the word Cuba scan.
I've been doing this a while. Come on, man.
So I spent the majority of my career on the inbound side of Amazon. So fulfillment center, the management team is broken up into an inbound and an outbound teams. I spent most of my career there on the inbound side. I did work on the outbound side for one peak season. So basically, receiving your products, receiving vendor products and FBA products, getting them on the shelves. And of course, on the inbound side, the main thing that we need to focus on is getting them in quickly, but also correcting any mistakes. So the first time I heard about FBA, for me, FBA was just, oh crap, I need to spend hours fixing this stuff because they weren't labeled correctly. There was a mistake, so I had to basically put a problem solver on that shipment, and they might be there all day fixing things, relabeling things.
So relabeling products, they would have mislabeled inbound cases. The right stuff wasn't in the box.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, over time that got better and better, but in the beginning, FBA just meant headache for an inbound receiving manager.
So you'll appreciate this. I was just maybe 6 or 7 days ago at an Amazon Partner Seller Summit in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where 300 sellers showed up, and there's Amazon employees, and they could ask any questions. And there's a guy there that worked with the FBA fulfillment side, and some lady posted a question like on the public chat that they had up on the projector. And she said, I live 2 miles from an Amazon fulfillment center and I sell retail arbitrage. why can't I just deliver my goods there?
Oh my.
Oh my, that's what I expected you to say.
I hear that. I see that question all the time in the Facebook groups. And I mean, the Amazon fulfillment centers are gigantic, and we have tractor trailers coming in and out of the yard all the time. We have guard shacks that make sure that the right drivers are coming in with the right stuff on the right truck. We can't have people coming in their Volkswagens and their minivans and offloading a couple boxes.
And you've got stuff scheduled. I used to,
yes.
We used to own a logistics business, and just getting one pallet there was like an act of Congress, because everything is scheduled down to 5-minute increments. And it's really, really amazing. I will say this, and I expect you'll agree with me. There's a lot of people that complain about Amazon and, they, lost my stuff. It took forever to get shipped in. But the amount of products that you move in and out every day, and the number of mistakes that you fix, and just the massive amount of coordination. I mean, it's really a miracle that anything gets done, at all. So that small mistake process, or small mistake percentage, I guess, is probably a lot better than it could be, right?
I mean, it could be better. I mean, Amazon's always striving to make that process smoother and better. And, one of the things, the innovations that have come up in the last couple of years is us doing, as sellers, doing box content.
Yep.
And assuming that we, as a seller, put the right thing in the right box, that's going to be auto received by Amazon and put in the shelves quickly. But when we make mistakes, then that's when things will get lost.
So walk me through the transition. You're working for Amazon, you're handling everybody else's stuff, and you decide, hey, I want to do this myself. How did that come about?
Oh boy. So it was actually a few things. So I was starting this journey where I was kind of getting tired of being told where to be and when to be there for my work, right? For the way I make income. And I wanted that flexibility and freedom. So I started to look for opportunities where I can, be my own boss, but not create a job for myself, right? So my dad is he's retired now, but he had his own mechanic business. But the only way he made money was by billing his customers, and that meant him actually going out and doing the work.
Yep.
So I was looking for ways where I wasn't creating a job for myself, but I wanted that something where I can have that freedom of time, and something I think that we all want as entrepreneurs. Another thing is that I found myself spending a lot of time working with the new managers that were coming out of college. And I had this epiphany one day where I realized I was spending more time working on their development than I was my own teenage son. And I would spend a Saturday morning, my schedule was typically Monday through Friday. And I would spend a Saturday morning working on their development plans. I would spend time, working on process improvements, crunching numbers and spreadsheets and things like that to make small incremental improvements in the processes. And I realized, I like doing that. I enjoyed it, actually. But I realized that none of that is going to actually benefit me in the long run. And then one day I'm talking to one of my other managers, and I'm kind of sharing my feelings with him a little bit. And he goes, dude, you know what? One of my buddies buys hats, New Era hats at Marshall's, and he sells them on Amazon, FBA. And I was just like, I know about FBA, but it never clicked. I don't know why, but it never clicked to me that someone is buying stuff at a store and flipping it on Amazon. And, he told me that his buddy, eventually got a wholesale account with New Era and was, selling a lot of hats, and now is full time. And I thought, it blew my mind. So guess what I did that night when I got home from work? I was Googling how to sell on Amazon.
Nice. And then fast forward, you were the only guy that could actually deliver your own goods to Amazon, right?
No.
Oh, come on. Don't lie to me.
You can't get them in the door.
Nice. All right. So you discovered retail arbitrage, and you kind of, from what I gather, you quickly realized that you needed to start creating your own products, creating your own brands. Why did you see that that was an important step to take from just the arbitrage model to, your own listings, your own products?
Well, arbitrage is a job. You have to continually go out unless you create systems and employees, which I've got now. But it is a job where you are constantly hunting for products, right? And a lot of people use the method where they are constantly looking for stuff at clearance and things like that. And so it's not repeatable. It's not scalable at that level. So I was looking for, okay, what are other people doing to create products that they're selling? And I ran across, of course, there's all sorts of programs and things out there. So I ran across one of those sales pitches where they're talking about how to create your own private label products on Amazon. So I watched their sales pitch videos, and they were talking about, okay, find something in one of the major categories. It's in the top 100. Go to Alibaba, look for that similar product and basically buy it and put it on Amazon. And I thought, I can do that. So that's what I did. I went into the pet products category and I found a cat tunnel that was in the top 100. And I thought, okay, I can source that. So I found something similar in Alibaba and I dropped $1,300 on 200 units and I had them shipped to me. And I just crossed my fingers that they actually arrived and they wouldn't rip me off. I had no clue. It was just all a transaction through Alibaba and over email. I got the products and they started selling at a decent rate, just a couple a week. That product was never a big seller, but that was my first introduction to a private label product.
And are you still selling it now?
I'm not. I actually stopped selling it about a year ago.
Why is that?
Just not enough velocity. The space got super saturated. I think a lot of other people that actually bought the course were probably advised, hey, here's a top 100 item in the pet category. Because within probably 6 months, there was, 30 other offers.
Yeah, that's... in fact, just today, I saw somebody posting on the Helium 10 users group about finding a product. And a guy, I think he was tooting his own horn, but he had a little Facebook video on how to, locate the top 100 items in a category to find your next potential product. And I got on there and I said, if you're looking at the top 100 category, you're looking in the wrong spot because everybody's looking there and it's already saturated. It's already a price war and you've already got tons of competition. And a lot of people think I'm crazy because courses teach that and software teaches that.
Right.
And I've had a lot of experience talking to some pretty significant influencers. And they have told me in private, Tim, your method is right, but we can't teach it because we're not going to sell a course if we say it's hard. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you freaking, just ripping people off in my opinion. But still, regardless of what teaches or not, if everybody else is doing it, you shouldn't be doing it. And if everybody else is seeing it, you shouldn't be seeing it. So that's interesting. But I will say on the flip side that if you hadn't started with that product, you never would have got started, or you might not have got started.
Not in private label. No, that was my first venture into private label, my first buy from China. And that gave me the confidence that actually works and I could expand and try other things.
Amen. I hear a lot of people get frustrated with private label because their first product was a failure or something. And I tell them, hey, this is just part of the journey. Like if you don't start here, then you're never going to keep moving. You have to fail to succeed. I think that my first 4 or 5 private label products sucked. I mean, they were awful. One of them was a complete copyright infringement, got my account suspended. I mean, it was god awful. But if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't have started learning the lessons I needed to learn. So your biggest takeaway from that first one was be careful about product selection. Is that probably an accurate statement?
Yeah. Avoid the top 100. I mean, the copycat products, don't do that. I was able to sell out of my inventory. I actually bought more over the next, year and a half. I made 3 or 4 more buys of that product. It continued to sell at a slow but consistent rate. And then I was just like, I can take my capital and put it into something else that is selling better, has a better return. And so I just stopped on that product. But I went into a couple other pet products as well, and I still sell one of those really consistently, a couple hundred units a month with, about a $5 profit per unit and not much capital expense up front. So yeah, it's great. It was a great entry product and I learned a lot from it.
So on the notes here, I see that one of the biggest epiphanies you had was finding what you put in parentheses as Golden Gap products, right? And that's something that we talk about a lot, but can you kind of explain that a little more and what you mean by finding Golden Gap products? And I know that when you say products, you really mean keywords.
Keywords, yes. Yeah.
All right. So go ahead and just explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I learned about that probably a couple of years ago, and I started using a tool to identify potential keyword gaps, underserved keywords that had decent volume. They weren't necessarily, they're not the top keywords. They're not going to have 20,000 searches in a month. They might have 500 or 1,000 searches. But if you can find a product that meets those needs and that person is searching for that, guess what? Your conversion rate is going to be amazing. And that's what I did. I was able to find a handful of products in completely different niches. And I not products, but I found the keywords, and then I was able to find a product to fit that keyword and to meet that need. And so those are my consistent sellers right now.
So again, you're preaching to the choir here, but that's one thing that we focus on a lot. We just did an ASD walkthrough, and we've done some workshops recently where I tell people to quit looking for products and start looking for keywords. And not only will that identify unique products for us, but it will also identify unique ways to sell saturated products. Right. So, saturation is based on keyword saturation, not product saturation. There's a lot of products that I would never sell under their primary, known keywords, but I can find enough long tail keywords that are wide open that, gives us an opportunity to sell in. So couldn't agree more. So April 2018, you went to China.
Yes.
Why did you decide you needed to go to China?
Well, boy, couple reasons. One was the experience, right? I wanted to just go there and see what it was like. And I kept hearing about it. eWoo, I kept hearing about eWoo in the marketplace. And the other was I wanted to get the experience, but also just to see the variety of products that are out there. Potentially make some new contacts. So that was the main thing. It was mostly for the experience. And, I wanted to buy a bunch of good products.
What was your first impression of eWoo?
Oh, it's gigantic.
Yeah. I try to describe it to people and I'm like, there's no way to describe it in words. You just have to be there.
Yeah. I tried to prep myself. I watched a few YouTube videos on people that had gone recently, and so that kind of gave me some perspective. But when I'm looking out of my hotel room and I'm on like the 20th floor, right across the street from the main district, and I can look down the street, and for miles, what seems like miles, 2 or 3 miles, I can see District 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a lot of walking.
It was. So did you find any good products there?
I did find, before I went, I had dabbled in a couple products I had sourced in the US, but the price point was really high. So I was able to find that actually at a price point at about 15% of what I was buying here in the States. And so that has been a successful product for me because that was a kind of a unique product. That was actually something I ran across on Pinterest. I kind of met that need, but my price was so high because of my price point here in the U.S. My cost.
Yeah.
So when I found it in eWoo, my mind was blown. I knew, boy, I could start turning this a lot more. So that was one success. A lot of the other stuff I bought was, unfortunately, a lot of my gut and not much keyword research.
So I was about to ask, if you had to go back again, what would you do differently? Would this be kind of the top of your list?
Yes. Yeah. I would go in knowing exactly what keywords I needed to fill instead of just kind of looking at what might be cool or what might be different or unique. Before I left and before I made my final buys, I did some research to see if, was I buying a bunch of copycat stuff or was it kind of unique to the market? But I didn't do enough of what keyword, what is my landing zone? What are my keywords that I'm going to land in? And so that was my big mistake right there.
And I know you went with a different group that's no longer doing these trips, to my understanding. But one thing that that I have a hard time with our students that go on our trips is I try to tell them, like, stop looking at products. You're not in there looking for products. You're looking for keywords. And the same thing, we go to ASD and some of these other trade shows. And I keep noticing that people are doing evaluation on the spot. They're evaluating, oh, I wouldn't use this product, or I don't like this product, or this must be saturated, or this must be unique. And like, we don't have the brain capacity or the knowledge to do that. We have to stop doing that. So that's why we teach just stacking up as many keywords and products as humanly possible in a catalog while we're there. And you're basically saying the same thing, is that you were analyzing and you were determining some products that you thought would be good, but you didn't research it enough. And I would say that applies to private label in general. I would say that people get excited about things, they get shiny object syndrome, they get emotionally attached to a product idea, and they're not letting the data make the decisions for them, or they're using the wrong data. One of those being sales volume. I know I've preached on this a lot lately, but gosh, if you're trying to compete with something that's in a top 100 of a broad category, or if you're, making a purchasing decision based on Jungle Scout that, uses high revenue and high sales data as an indicator of a good product or not, you're doing it wrong. And I know that ruffles a lot of feathers, but gosh, time and time again, I see it. And that's one reason I wanted you on here, was because when you made your comments on Facebook, I was like, oh, this guy gets it. I want him to share his experience, but also, make sure people know we're not crazy. Like, determining what works and what doesn't, is largely done by non-mainstream methods, Yeah,
exactly. I think, to save people a lot of money, my education has been expensive in that area, in the area of private label, and that's how I look at it. I look at it as an expensive education. I will eventually move these products. I will find the right keywords to push them under. I'll give you an example. Like, in my warehouse right now, I have work tables that are basically pieces of plywood sitting on boxes of cat scratchers. Okay, this is a product I bought, probably 3 years ago when I was working on these pet products, right? Kind of a line of pet products. And they were unique. They were different. It was a cat scratcher, and it had a little ball with a jingle bell in it, in a track, not a circular track, but a track that was just kind of straight. And I thought, oh man, this is going to be unique. It's a cat scratcher. It's a toy at the same time. I know my cats are going to love it. But guess what? How am I going to differentiate that with keywords? People are not searching for cat scratcher with jingle bell ball toy. That's not a keyword people search for. They're searching for cat scratchers. So how am I going to compete in that market if my product might be different, but my keywords are not different?
Yep. And I tell people all the time, like, not only are we looking for keywords, but we don't sell products, we sell keywords. So even if you have the greatest variation of something out there, I mean, you've got the greatest unicorn hair beard brush. If nobody's looking for unicorn hair beard brush, but the terms beard brush are super saturated, no one's going to find your product because you can't afford for the PPC. And so no matter how great your product is, you don't sell a product, you sell a keyword, at least on Amazon. Now that changes when we get into social media and we get into different platforms and stuff like that.
Right.
So, China, what was the funniest thing you witnessed there? Something that, like, when your buddies that aren't even in e-commerce are like, hey, you went to China, be like, yeah, let me tell you what I saw.
Oh my goodness.
And I know I'm putting you on the spot here. I'm not giving you any prep for this, but so that makes it more authentic because I make you come up with it instantly. It's got to be real.
Oh my goodness. There was a lot of, like, I guess, small little funny things that, just the crosswalks, just to get from my hotel to across the street to the market was just crazy. With all the bikes and the motorcycles and the cars, and it just seemed like chaos. My translator. So we were walking through the market, and when you go into the market, a lot of the booths, they're just sitting outside the booth. They're half asleep. They got maybe their little kids running around. Or fully
asleep.
Yeah, or totally asleep. They're eating. They're talking to each other. And I'm like, oh, so, we were just walking through. It was kind of a clothing area. We were kind of walking to another area. And I said, oh, I'm curious, what were they talking about? And my translator looked at me and she said, I have no idea. They were talking in a local dialect. And I'm like, what? We're in China. You don't understand what they're talking about? So just that, it was kind of really surprising.
To me, China was amazing because of the modern technology and how advanced they are in so many things, but they're also still like 2,000 years old.
Yeah.
And they've got these local dialects all over the place that are just ancient, and I tell people it's the only place in the world at the same red light you can see a Lamborghini and a rickshaw.
Yes.
And it's true.
It is true.
Pretty wild. So right now you're balancing, let me kind of change subjects for a second. You're balancing your business between RA and private label.
Right.
Which one do you see as kind of easier to get started with, and which one is more scalable? And I know the answer, but then I'm going to ask, I know the answer you're going to give me, but then I want to ask you why.
Okay. My business is right now, roughly 60% retail arbitrage, and 40% private label, according to my sales. So for scalability, so what I did for my retail arbitrage business, in order for me to scale it and be able to quit my job, at a certain point, I figured that the easiest way for me to quit my job was to scale my retail arbitrage business. I didn't have the time and the mental capacity to do the research that I needed to do for private label. But I knew that I could go into a store, and as long as I'm walking around, I could still be awake and buying things and doing the hustle. But at a certain point, I was tired of scanning things. So what I did is I created a shopping list. And that shopping list, I could go into a store and it was all full retail stuff that I had determined I could sell over and over again. So it was replenishable items from in all areas. People, when they hear replenishable, they think grocery, but it was grocery, toys, clothing, almost every category, home goods. And so I took this list. I could hit a store like a Walmart, for example. I could be in a Walmart and spend about $1,000 in an hour. And I could hit 2 or 3 Walmarts, spend about $3,000, I get that shipped in. And so what I did is I actually hired a shopper because I had plateaued at that point. This is before I quit my job. I had plateaued. And so I hired a shopper to do the shopping for me. I just gave her the list. You go shopping. And now I'm going to spend that time that I was shopping looking for new products that I could add to the list. And so that's how I grew and how I scaled. And now I actually have shoppers for my .com business, for Canada, and my UK business. They're using shopping lists of these replenishable retail arbitrage items. So that part is somewhat scalable. You just have to put the systems in place. I also have another employee that does a lot of the back end work. She creates the shopping list. She deals with customer questions and different things like that on the back end.
Yeah, and I knew you were going to say that because I saw a little bit about your business here, and I think that's important because ultimately what we want is we want an e-commerce business.
Yeah,
and as you know, Chris, arbitrage isn't going to last forever. It's not something you want to base your business on completely, no. But it is a really good way to get started in the business. It's a really good way to build capital. But if you automate and systematize it, it's also a good way to just have a fairly hands-off automated business. Yeah. And it is somewhat scalable. I've got some close friends that sell $300,000 or $400,000 a month in arbitrage. Wow. And what they did to move from a side hustle to a business was exactly what you said, was you had to start outsourcing, you had to start building systems, you had to have shopping lists, you had to create what I like to call force multipliers. Yeah. So instead of you finding a potential, item and then selling it and finding another one and selling it, you would find it and let like 12 other people source it and sell it. Exactly. You know what I mean? So I don't know how many shoppers you have, but I say that because there's so many people that are in the retail arbitrage grind, right? And every hour they put in makes them a little bit of money, and they have to put in more hours to make more money. And a lot of people want to get to private label and they want to start their own brands, and it's a lot of work and it's definitely worth doing. It's 100% something they need to be doing. But I would also say that people are scared to change their mindset in arbitrage from side hustle to real business. Yeah. And the best way to do that, the best way to turn that into a real sustainable business, at least for now, a more sustainable or more scalable, I'll say scalable instead of sustainable, scalable business is to start building those systems.
Exactly.
So thank you for saying that. That's a really good point that I hadn't planned to bring up today, but it's important that people understand that and hear that, because I see so many people that are like, oh, I'm doing great in my business. I stayed outsourcing at 24-hour Walmart's till 4 a.m. this morning. And I'm like, crap, dude, you got to quit doing that. Like, you got to build a system.
Yeah.
And did you follow anybody's guidance or plan on that, or did you just kind of figure it out yourself?
I mean, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, so I'm always picking up little tips here and there. And for example, one tip that I picked up one time was buying clothing at Walmart. Kind of blew my mind. I was like, really, you can do that and flip it? And so the next day I was out scanning, and I found a ton of stuff that I could do that with. And so that was, just hearing tips like that. But I think the biggest thing for me was trying to figure out how I could do it while I was working these crazy hours as a manager at an Amazon fulfillment center. How can I hand off some of this work and be able to scale my business? I had already handed off kind of the packing and the shipping to my teenage son and his buddies. So I had a crew that would come in every Saturday into the garage, and they would just, in like 5 or 6 hours, process 500 or 600 units, prep it, pack it, get it out the door. Then I gave the shopping to a person, and she would go out shopping and take care of that. And so then I was able to work on other things in my business and scale it. And, honestly, sometimes I don't go into a store for 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm just hearing the things from my shoppers and what's going on, and so the systems, build systems. Don't build yourself a job. Build yourself a business. I once I quit my job, I honestly went on a little bit of a freedom binge, and probably a little too much, but I did. I love hiking and trail running and things like that. So I was constantly in the woods, just doing stuff like that and letting my business run itself. I would check in, of course, every other day. I had someone in place that was taking care of like any email messages that might be coming through and things like that. And, but I would just check in every couple of days and, okay, how'd the shopping go? Good. That went good. Okay. Well, how are we doing finances? Okay. We got the shipment out. Great. And so that's, what I wanted to go, where I want to go next. And the reason I want to build more private labels, I want more of that freedom, more of that time, and freedom of not only the time I want freedom of location too. With the retail arbitrage business, there's a certain amount of location dependence, right? I need to be at a certain location where I'm at, where my warehouse is, where my team is. But with private label, I know that I can build more freedom for myself, and that's what I'm looking for.
Exactly. So you were working at Amazon, handling other people's products. Did you have an entrepreneurial bug in you yet? Did you have any idea that in just a number of years you would be completely independent working for yourself, or was that kind of a shock?
It's always been there. I've always had a side hustle. Whether that, depending on throughout the years, it might be a second job, or it might be a little contract work I would be doing for someone. But I guess having the mindset of being an entrepreneur and owning my own business and providing for my own family without a company paycheck, that was super scary. And so that took a lot for me to overcome. And I know I've heard you talk about mindset before. And so for me, it was actually creating a kind of a statement for myself. And I'm spacing on what the right word is, but I would be telling myself on the way to work that I am a business building warrior. You've probably heard that phrase from the different communities, right? And
yep. So this is like your creed, like your mantra, your mission statement.
I would tell myself, I'm a business building warrior. I provide an income for myself and my family. I'm independent. So I was telling myself that and convincing my own mind months before I was able to quit my job, months before I had replaced my income. And I had to do that. I had to continue to convince myself that I can do this. And I'm smart enough, good enough, and I'm good looking. And that's, that's what I told myself.
There you go. I'm going to get all that tattooed on my forearm when I see it. I'll accept the good looking part. That would just make me laugh and lie to myself, but that's all right. Awesome. So for all of those listening, we're going to wrap up, but all of those listening, what's the one thing that made the biggest impact on your ability to transition from an idea to a real business that you can share? So the one thing, like the epiphany that helped you decide, okay, this is real, this is possible, I'm going to make this happen.
I think focus. Focus was the one thing I needed. And I think a lot of Amazon sellers need that as well. There's a lot of different methods out there, a lot of opportunities. And what I decided to do is just let that all go. I let the fear of missing out go. And I decided, you know what? This is what I can scale. This is what I can do right now where I'm at. I'm going to focus on it and I'm going to crush it. And I got so focused in that my sourcing was Walmart only. That was it. And I became a Walmart expert. I knew every product in the store better than almost all of their employees. At the 10 Walmarts in my area, I could walk in and buy, and I knew the prices. I knew what would sell. And it was just, I was super focused on that one sourcing method. And I was just able to scale it and crush it. And I let myself not get distracted by all these other things until I had the time and I was able to quit my job. And so I tell people to focus all the time because they're hopping from one method to another. They're doing this. They're going to this store. They're dabbling in wholesale and private label. And you know what? Pick your method and kill it. You can do it in any method. Just focus.
Couldn't agree more. And you're preaching to me right now because I'm terrible about that. My business partners are like, Tim, sit down and do something because you're running around, thinking about all the things you should be doing and talking about the things we will do, and you're not doing any of it. And taking myself out of the equation, I do get to see a lot of people in the industry and a lot of people, doing different things and what works and what doesn't. And I have to completely agree. That's one of the biggest problems that we face. And it's not like a malicious mistake. It's not like we're stupid or naive. It's just, there's so many opportunities and we're all, got this entrepreneurial bug and we're all a little bit insane, if you want to be honest. And it's hard to ignore all of the opportunities out there. It's extremely difficult because there's so much of it out there. But, sometimes I have to turn my phone off. Sometimes I put my headphones on and I turn on brain.fm and listen to music and zone out, and I lock my office door so no one can distract me. And I just get to it. Sometimes I leave my office, I come back here in the podcast studio and pretend I'm doing a podcast so everybody thinks I'm doing a podcast and they leave me alone. But yeah, if you're not focused, then you're never going to be able to, bury down and get something done. And also I would take that further and say, be careful on what you focus on. If you're in retail arbitrage, don't just focus on sourcing more. Focus on building a system so you can scale. Don't just focus on which products you're buying. Focus on setting up, standard operating procedures where other people can be doing the buying. So it's more than just focusing. It's having a tactical plan of attack on what we're focusing on.
Let me give you an example. So I lost focus for the last probably year or so. Kind of this. I'm just taking in the freedom that I have from the job a little too much. And, but one thing that I realized, and I kind of, over the last week, I put together this goal, and I want to have 20 new private label products by Q4 that are selling 100 plus units per month. And I was like, okay, how am I going to make that happen? So I know that not every single private label product I test is going to be successful, right? So I think maybe 1 out of 5. So, and that's kind of based on some of my own experience, some products I've done in the past. So I need to test in the next 5 months, I need to test 100 products. So that means I need to identify 100 products basically in 20 weeks. And I need to not only identify them, I need to purchase a small quantity, test them with the PPC, and then if they work out, and then buy them. So it's a big process, but I'm turning my focus to that, and kind of, I know what my goal is. And now I've been able to kind of work backwards and say, okay, what are my daily actionable steps that I can take every single day in order to hit that goal? And so I need to identify a new potential private label product every single day for the next 20 weeks in order to make that happen. So I'm excited about that. That's my newest focus. I know it is, so I'm a little nervous about it, but it's a big, hairy goal.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thanks for coming on. We're at about 40 minutes, so we need to wrap it up. Otherwise, people start getting sick of listening to me. But thank you. I know that you've got no ulterior motives to being on here. You're not here to pitch anything. You're not selling anything. You're just here to help. And we love that, and we appreciate that. And I love when I reach out to somebody that I feel like can have some valuable content to share, and they say, yeah, put me on the podcast, put me on Legion Live, whatever. And I don't take that for granted. And I know the listeners don't take that for granted. And I absolutely personally appreciate you doing this, because
I hope so.
There is something you've said that's going to help somebody. And I suspect it'll be a lot more than just one thing and a lot more than just one person. But if one thing helps one person, it's worth it. And I appreciate you sharing your time. So what we'll do is go ahead and sign off now, folks. If you're listening and you haven't gotten involved in the Private Label Legion Facebook group, do that. Just go to Facebook, look up Private Label Legion, follow us on Instagram, Private Label Legion. Follow us on YouTube. If you're listening to this on iTunes or anything like that, Podbean or Stitcher or any of those podcast platforms, leave comments. Give us a thumbs up if you would. Go over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. We do a lot of content over there. Keep up with what we're doing. We're weekly putting out multiple pieces of content. It's free. It's for you. I promise you it's good. It's going to help your business. And we want to hear from you on what's working, what's not working, and what you can share with the community also. So thank you guys for being on. Chris, thank you for coming on again. And we will see you guys on the next episode of Legion Radio.
You've just wrapped up another episode of Legion Radio, hosted by Tim Jordan. Past episodes, links, and show notes can be found at privatelabellegion.com.